All right, welcome. We have Frank Llosa here from KetoneAid, and we're going to talk about the benefits of ketone esters, when to use them, when not to use them.
Quick recap on where we've been, and our products are being used in the Tour de France. It's really exciting talking to
Great.
world record breaking athletes and giving them advice on how to do their protocols. That's what I do on a weekly basis. At least I'm talking to one or two professional athletes, and we have had two world records broken using our drink, but they weren't even sponsored. And one of our funny taglines is, we don't sponsor athletes, we help athletes get sponsored.
Uh,
We're the secret ingredient. Like we'll help you go from fifth place to first place, and then you can hold up that Red Bull or Gatorade and either pretend to drink it or really drink it. But then we were the ones that helped. Obviously, they're working hard. Everyone's working their tail off in the athletic world. It's that extra edge. It's all legal, all WADA approved, all that stuff. There's no worries on that front. It's been exciting.
yeah, wow. I wanted to add in when you were talking about the taste of of the ketones.
Yeah, please.
A lot of times when I have used it in clients or patients or friends are trying it, I describe it as like the taste of jet fuel, like drinking jet fuel. It has this kind of biting taste to it, but the health benefits for a lot of people who are health conscious, like myself, will chug down anything regardless of how it tastes because we know it's so good, it's good for us, right? And it's going
And
to improve our performance or energy.
and some people have actually grown accustomed to the taste and actually like the taste because they see the benefits, and then suddenly there's this mental thing where this thing that tasted bad, suddenly they're craving it and they start to actually like it. I haven't gotten there yet. I haven't gotten to the point where I like it. Well, I still sometimes drink it like before going to bed, and sometimes I'm still like,
Yeah.
man, this is pretty harsh. But there's little tricks you can do. You can put it in the fridge, you can chase it with sparkling water, and there's
Yeah.
some things you can do to manage it, but most people just take it straight down.
Down the hatch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about some of the benefits. You mentioned athletes and the Tour de France, which is really exciting, but what are some of the expected benefits? And then maybe we can dive a little bit deeper into the weight loss conversation after that.
Right. With the cycling and the athletes, there's many different ways it can be used, everywhere from recovery to before bed for better sleep, better deep sleep. On my Instagram account, you can see people, I've got the Aura ring here. People send in screenshots saying, hey, here's my deep sleep. And then I took ketone ester and it popped. We actually don't know why. It hasn't been proven. We'd like to prove it in clinical trials. Maybe someone psychologically thinks, hey, I'm going to take this $3 drink, so I better go to sleep faster and not look at my phone. And then that makes them have deeper sleep. I don't know, but you can go to the Amazon reviews and 50% of them are about sleep. I didn't wake up 3 times last night, and all these different. But for the athletes, there are three main ways that it works the best. One is in a fasted state. So people that are already doing fasted rides, this fuel is compatible with that. And why do they do fasted rides? Because you have less inflammation. You can work out harder more frequently. Even though your watts will be lower, your output will be lower, you're still building more muscle. Well, you don't want to use glucose as a fuel source because it's going to give you inflammation and all the negatives, and lactic acid. Using ketone ester, it's more compatible with those fasted rides. And one might say, oh, well, now you're not fasted. Okay, but the amount that you're taking is so tiny that we think that it might trigger more endogenous production, because mathematically that $2 to $5 of ketones that you're taking should have been burned off in 15 minutes, but they're recording great numbers. So the fasted rides, and sometimes if someone compares a fasted ride versus then the next day they take 200 calories of sugar and they compare that to 24 calories of ketones, yeah, sure, the sugar is probably gonna do better, but then you have all the harmful effects of that for long-term use. The second thing is altitude. It happens to work better in altitude. And we had one athlete, the vegan cyclist, you can ask him about it. He contacted me, pretty excited about, oh my God, my numbers were, I don't want to say the percentage, but it was a significant percentage increase PR on this ride. Wow. And it happened to be that he hit upon these three things by accident. The first one, he did fasted ride. Secondly, it happened to be at high altitude, but also hills. And hills and high altitude don't necessarily aren't the same thing. And I said, you need to manage your not expectations of, but the expectations of your audience, because if you tell them that you had this great blowout percentage, but you accidentally happen to be fasted, hills and altitude, and then they're on a flat course doing sprints, and chugging a bunch of glucose, they might not have the same experience.
Mm.
So the second is altitude, just the way that the heart utilizes ketones versus glucose. It's just far more efficient. So for ice climbers, people that are climbing at super high altitudes, they haven't really caught on to this, but hopefully, maybe they'll see this podcast and be like, oh, wow, I'll check that out. So altitude works much better. And then hills. The reason it works for hills is your muscle is basically broken down into 4 different types of muscles. You got your fast twitch, and fast twitch doesn't have mitochondria, so it can only be fueled by glucose. The slower the twitch muscles, the fourth muscle, which is more for hills, those can be fueled, those have significantly more mitochondria, and that can be fueled by glucose and ketones. So on the hills, Daniel Holloway, who won the national championship using the ester, said that he was at a different gear than everyone else going up the hills. He was just walking past them. Now, on the flats and on the sprints, they might catch up, but it's just a different fuel source. But it is kind of tricky on how to use the ester. It takes them 5 years to figure out the size of banana that they want for their marathon race. And here they expect to just down a drink, and it's a food. So just like, how much sugar you want to get into your system, it can take a while figuring it out. And everyone is drastically different. If you're fat adapted or a non-keto athlete, it was designed for non-keto special forces. That's how Dr. Feach got his first funding. They gave it to $10 million to the DARPA military to kind of figure out a more efficient fuel source. But for the athletes, it can be tricky because everyone's body will respond differently. So it can take, several attempts for it to, finally kick in. But it's fun when I get a professional athlete that the first 3 times, like, no, not really. And then the 4th time they call me and go, oh my God, Frank, these things that you asked me if I, noticed, it all came together on this one. And this is a martial arts fighter. He said, I just was flattening everyone, and everyone had their jaw down. Like, what is up with him? What is he on? He's on ketones. So those are, some ways. And then everyone wants to use it just on game day.
Yeah.
But the recovery aspect of it, I tell people don't even use it on game day, because when this works, it really works. But when it doesn't work, it really doesn't work. We've had people have to drop out of races because the ketones can drop your blood sugar too much and make you feel more flat. So they tend to take more. Professional athletes, sometimes Tour de France athletes, they'll take too much if money's no object, and more must be better, but it drops your blood sugar, not good. So we really suggest you doing it in workout. And some people just do it in workouts, and then game day they go back to what they're used to. And they said, hey, I hit an 18-month PR. Could it have been because I just felt lighter on my feet? It was just easier. Were the ketones still in my system? I said, no, you were just more recovered by using them during the week. So, I think more emphasis has to be done on the training aspect of it. And, the first Tour de France athlete that tried it on record, Greg Henderson, he had actually hit 10% higher watts. He happened to be at altitude, something that took us a couple of years to figure out, why everyone else wasn't getting those results. He was at altitude, but he said that he was amazed by that, but he was more amazed by the fact that the next day his heart rate monitor indicated that he had taken the day off. He's like, if you can, instead of having 2 hard workouts a week or 1, you go to 2 or 3, 4 hard workouts. That is what's gonna really have a bigger effect on game day than on game day taking it. And it can work on game day, but I really suggest 2 to 3 months of playing around with it before bringing it in.
That's interesting. So there is with a lot of options for athletes, there's a lot of bio individuality. So figuring out how your body responds to it. Maybe we all create some natural amount of ketones, and then you add in the exogenous.
So for most non-keto athletes, we found that there's a range. They have to take a little bit more than the keto athletes to start feeling it. So let's say starting at 10 mLs, like about $5 worth. But then they stop at the 20, 25 mLs. They really can't go up higher because the blood glucose drop. The keto group, they can take as little as 5 mLs, $2 worth, and say, hey, Frank, I noticed a difference. But then recently, this one athlete, he wanted to take more ketones, but he didn't like adding glucose, which we call the dual fuel, taking both of them together. It makes him sick. He's keto. Even though some keto athletes will burn off all the glucose during their ride so then they can remain keto, there's a strategy to that, but there's downsides to that because of inflammation. So I said to him, let's go backwards. Instead of slowly creeping up the amount, just go ahead and take a full bottle and see what happens. And I was expecting yeah, kind of expecting that it would drop his blood sugar and that he would see that that was too much. But man, he wrote me back saying, "Oh my God, I loved it. I had the PR." So then we started understanding that the more keto you are, the more fat adapted you are, the less it drops your blood sugar. So you actually
Mhm.
can use more. So it's all constantly evolving. There's several clinical trials that show some efficacy, some don't show efficacy, but it really matters how you take it. In these clinical trials, sometimes are showing it, with a full meal beforehand, and then they wait until the ketones are depleted to zero, and then they give them a 20-minute, time trial. I'm like, no, it doesn't. First of all, it doesn't work on sprints as well, and second of
Mhm.
all, you waited until the ketones hit zero to then start your workout because they wanted to see whether it was glycogen sparing. Did it leave more glycogen in your system? So the trials are mixed, but they're not, how we tell people to use them. Hopefully we'll get a trial where the group is willing to, try our protocols. Exciting on the scientific side as well.
Yeah, always evolving. So athletes can use this. A lot of cyclists benefit from this, from using the ketone esters. What do you think? I would love to hear your perspective on using the ketone esters for weight loss, especially in the early part of your journey.
Yeah, we don't recommend it for weight loss. I know there's all these other ketone products with before and after photos. They'll have multi-level marketing where they want you to sell your 10 friends. I think it's really important to really understand diet as opposed to just following a diet. So understanding lifestyle
Yeah.
and not just following a checklist of eat these things. You have to understand why. Why is it okay to eat fat, and how do you test your blood ketones in the morning? How do you throw away your scale and make your blood? You want some indication of success? Great. Your blood test, not urine test. Your blood test, or maybe the breath meter, that should be your scale. Just as long as you're 0.5 to 1.5 and you're on the keto diet, you're doing great. The scale, the hormones and the excitement and the depression from the numbers going up and down, and your
Mhm.
numbers are false. You lose 5 pounds of water weight in the first week. That's why people love the keto diet, but that's not the secret to the keto diet. But they
Mhm.
love it because they think that they lost weight, but it was all water. So, using a blood ketone meter and throwing away the scale for 3 months, and if you're between 0.5 and 1.5, it's going to be really hard for you not to lose weight.
Yeah, great. Okay. So, helping the body to adapt really to, not eating food, but really not the best first go around for somebody who wants to lose weight.
So, it's so much of it is about the mind. So if
Yeah.
you can really just go straight to the source and get as much as possible the control without the help of other things, I think it'll be a much longer term solution.
Yeah.
But you can bring in the ketones for, test taking, studying, mental benefits,
Probably.
apart from it. But the weight loss, we haven't really advertised it for that. And,
Mhm.
people will ask, how can you use it? And I send them the 90-minute video that says, if you get through this 90 minutes and you really understand how, everything works, at least my theory of how everything works,
Sure.
then maybe you can incorporate it. But for the most part, we're not targeting that, even though it's a huge, multi-billion-dollar market. I just don't.
So cognitive power, cognitive improvement for med students, law students, anybody who's got a big exam, who's building a business, that's a huge benefit. And then you look at athletes, so performance enhancement is really the place where ketones shine, right?
But even the athletes, one of the clinical trials, they're doing a sprint study, and I said, hey guys, it doesn't work for sprint. So while you're at it, why not test their brain? And they
Mhm.
found that the ketone ester group, both groups had 2 errors in their iPad test. They do sprints and they do some iPad luminosity type tests. And the ketone ester group started with 2 wrong answers. And at the end, when they're like vomit inducing, not because of the ketones, but just because they're super tired,
Yeah.
they still had 2 wrong answers. Whereas the placebo group that had only glucose, they went up to 4 wrong answers. So 100% more wrong answers. So the end of an Ironman or, these multi-hour races, your brain starts to go. And there's
Yeah.
really not much to bring the brain back. But the glucose, part of the problem is the brain can't be fully fueled by glucose towards the end of the races. And the ketones bypass that blockage and just bring you back to normal.
Mhm.
So bring you back to the mental state at the beginning of a race. And once, professional quarterbacks figure this out and they can have a fourth quarter be mentally as sharp as the first quarter, it'll be
It's a
as
game
common on the
changer.
sidelines. People will be dumping, ketone products, on people's heads and stuff. But
Yeah.
it just takes a while for this information to get out because there's so much noise out there, and how do you tell what's real and what's not real? And even when you take the drink, if you take it wrong, it's not something that's just like caffeine that just works straight up. It's a little bit trickier. But those people that have tried it several times, we have a huge repeat orders of people buying it again and again.
Yeah. Talk about an unfair advantage if you're on the sidelines and you're as sharp at the end of the game as you are at the
Yeah.
beginning. That's, yeah, a great purpose for it. So awesome. Well, you've created an amazing product. Thank you so much for just sharing more about the story behind it, how it can be used. So anybody listening can go out, find KetoneAid, experience it if they haven't. And where can anybody who's listening in find you or the ketones?
So we sell directly on KetoneAid.com. So KetoneAid.com. We also sell on Amazon, but Amazon takes a big cut. So if you want to support the company, ordering direct always helps. And I say that for everything from Peely nuts to, my other friends selling keto products, and ordering direct helps. And yeah, and people sometimes put it on a subscription that lowers the price as well. And you can set it for every couple months.
Great.
And yeah, we'll be coming out with new products like the snake water. I'll give you a sneak peek of the
Oh yeah, show us
of
that.
the label.
Oh, that is cool. That looks like an
So
old school,
yeah,
snake oil bottle.
that's what we're working on right now.
Fun.
We sold out of. We did a Cyber Friday pre-sale before we actually made it, and we sold out of that batch. So we're gonna send them out and get some feedback and make some tweaks. And if they like it, we'll bring it. We'll keep it. If it doesn't have a resounding effect, then we'll just let people stick with what works. But I've been wanting to do that project for 3 years, so finally I said let's have some fun with it.
It's time to bring it to life. Yeah, very fun. All right. Well, they can check out that product as well. When is that one launching?
At the beginning of 2021.
Okay, so January 1st is when that's available.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Frank. And we will send people your way for ketones. Thank you for your education and everything that you're doing.
All right, thank you.
All right, take care.